Those meeting is being recorded. You haven't heard the little notice in the background there. So this is the Fairfield Economic Development Commission meeting of December 7th, 2023. We're meeting in the Old Town Hall Conference Room as well as via Zoom. In the room we have Colin and Justin. Secretary Gretchen. And online we
Medium
have,
coffee, touch of milk.
and Ken, you may have to mute yourself because you're getting a lot of background.
Yeah.
So you have a quorum, and the time is 8:34. So with that, call the meeting to order with the chairman's introductory.
Good morning, everyone, and December or Hanukkah and our Christmas coming forward. So those who are celebrating, everyone's so a wonderful holiday. We have several items today that we're going to go through that agenda. The initial part is to probably to consider the minutes, if we can
Motion
the opportunity for that.
Motion to vote on accepted.
And a second on that, and all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, very good, all right. Good. Good.
Yeah,
You got everyone?
we have quorum.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
All right, good.
We're just counting.
All right, okay, well, just kind of pushing it right along. We have a few things that we have to get done going into next year's schedule. There is the consideration of officers, there is the schedules that we need to look at together and approve. So I will start by opening the floor as far as anyone who might wish to be chairman, chairman. That any other individuals who might wish to do that? To act as a
We
chairman.
need probably, well, we do need a chair and secretary, you know, we also have had a vice chair.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So there's a motion to vote on or
There's a motion.
propose,
Right,
but a new chair amongst the group.
that's correct.
Is anyone, well, let me throw it out. Is anyone interested in serving as chair for the upcoming 2024 season? Matt, Ken, I don't know if you heard, as we were getting started. Kevin had indicated that because of work commitments, has some concerns about his ability to fully commit to being chair, although he's willing to continue on as I
That is
understood it.
correct. That is correct.
And folks in the room have indicated that perhaps they're comfortable with the existing arrangement, but wanted to open it up if either of you have any interest or the time to commit to that. You know, now's the time to speak up.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone wish to consider that position?
I'd echo what the little bit I heard before I joined. Comfortable with how things are. It's not something I could take on at this point.
I just, I think what I was suggesting before, and I'll just kind of say it again, is that like all of you, we have busy days ahead of us, but I certainly would never want the commission to feel that I was not doing everything I should be doing. And so if that was the case, I would always want someone to come forward and say that and to offer other leadership. If you know, as they say, you either you lead, you follow, or you move aside. And so I want to make sure that I'm not that person in the left lane at 55. Okay? So all right. So anyway, so that's all that said. I would accept the chairmanship for next year if you would so have me.
I second it. Understanding it's, I don't want to say provisional, opposed to conditional.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, I guess all in favor on that? Okay, we got that aside, and that's good. So Steve, you have served as well. I guess I was presuming that was a vice chair. Was that not a vice chair or is it?
It's not required, but we've traditionally fulfilled that role because of the fact that you all lead busy lives and
right.
you sometimes need to have somebody step in and run a meeting in your absence. So a vice chair, in my opinion, is critical to the performance of this commission.
So I would ask Steve if you would be interested in
I-
following
I'm
through on that.
Happy to continue.
Excellent. So do I have a second? On that? Excellent. All in favor?
I vote for myself.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Good.
of course.
Good. Do we need a secretary or?
Secretary is actually one that I've been told is something that is required, although we don't really transact official business in the sense that we need a official secretary to do those things, but you know, if we wanna
Let's make them
fill our requirements, why don't we just
Let's
have
make
some
some powers to be happy. Can I have a motion on the floor of someone who would wish to act as a secretary for our commission?
Only if we have official correspondence, somebody needs to certify that it was the official act of this board, so.
Excellent.
Wait, step up, Justin.
I'll step up.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. So that's the first step, Justin. That's,
Yeah.
so you know, you're gonna, right here.
Uh,
So, okay, so we have a second.
We have a 10-year succession plan.
Right. All in favor to have Justin as secretary? Excellent. Okay, good. All right, that's great.
Or 2/3 through the critical stuff we have to do at this month's meeting.
That's right. And then the next approach would be the schedule. I know that we printed out, if you've had an opportunity to take a look.
So I was presuming that this meeting time date kind of works for folks, so I just carried the schedule forward. I avoided obviously the July 4th holiday. I will note that in the proposed schedule, October 3rd happens to fall during Rosh Hashanah. I don't know if that's an issue for folks. And then the following week is Yom Kippur.
Okay.
So, you know, it's up to you guys as to, I was gonna leave it on the 3rd, but, you know, certainly open to other possibilities. We can always cancel meetings, and it's good to have a meeting schedule and then everything's a regular meeting subject to those meeting notice requirements. But if we need to have a special meeting, we can do that. Not a big deal.
Can I have a motion to accept these with the provision of adjustments as needed?
So be it.
Okay, all right, excellent. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, we're good on that.
All right. Ken, I left the EDC project list update on the agenda. I did provide a copy of the draft that we sent out. We had a fairly robust conversation at the last meeting. You know, echoing the theme that we've had here this morning in terms of, you know, I fully appreciate this, a volunteer position, that you all have other commitments, work obligations, family obligations, other volunteer commitments you've made. So I want to be respectful of your time. At the same time, I appreciate the wealth of experience and knowledge and talent on this board. You all bring a lot of different background, skills, abilities, experiences from your own work perspective. So it's great to be able to, you know, if all your time on this board allows is for me to bounce ideas off you and for you to provide some strategic oversight in terms of our economic development priorities, that is great. If some of you would like to take a more direct, hands-on approach to specific projects that you have an interest in, I'm happy to fulfill that requirement too. I know that, you know, Ken and I have talked about his background with real estate. You know, he has an interest in a couple areas. Justin, we've talked about different things like special events and entrepreneurship. Again, happy to tailor your experience to what your interest and time commitments are. And we don't have to get into specifics here, but if there are things on kind of the list that we've talked about and the discussion we had at the last meeting, and you want to take that a step further, we can do that. And it could just be an individual commission member working with me and then coming back to the full board to report out a couple of those things as we work through it. I know Kenny had wanted to look at, properties that the town owns and see whether or not there are higher and better uses for it. And that's an easy one that, easy in the standpoint that we can, we have an inventory. I have some ideas as to how we could take that a step further and do that analysis and bring in other boards and commissions that have a say in the disposition of those properties. But I think, that type of thing, we should periodically evaluate town assets and decide, hey, is there a higher and better use for this facility? And we talked about the Mill Plain commuter lot, for example, as one illustration. I think, I'm gonna talk to leadership here to make sure that we're not going down a rabbit hole that leads nowhere. But assuming there's an interest in at least exploring or considering what the options are on that, we can then craft an RFQ, RFP to see what, a consultant that could bring in and look at market options, what the market might support for that particular site and look at specific uses that we have in mind. So with that as a lead in, Ken, I don't know if you had any other thoughts you'd like to share at this time. But again, with regard to the inventory of town properties and an analysis of that, happy to work with you on that or other projects that you have a specific interest in.
Not sure if he knows he's muted or not. That could be an issue.
Ken, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, it's noisy. I'm in Grand Central. Still all in. I'm all in. I'd love some help. If anyone wants to join me, that would be great. Love it. Do we want to attack parking? Is anyone, I think that would be a great addition to this year's agenda. Seems relatively easy for us to wrap all our hands around and be impactful.
Yeah, I think my suggestion has been like pick one or two things that that are of interest, not to spread ourselves too thin. But I know that, and Gretchen, as a recording secretary to the Affordable Housing Committee, knows there has been some work by the Affordable Housing Committee members, and very similar. An individual on that committee took that and said, I'm going to look at this more in depth and did a full-blown analysis of, and I provided some resources to him to assist in that analysis, but he did a parking utilization analysis of larger commercial properties. And I think that provides a good backdrop for our work.
Yes, so we should coordinate with him. We should help him. We should be a part of him. What do you suggest?
If those are the parking and the looking at town properties, are the two things that you'd like to focus on, we can have an offline conversation, and figure out how to structure that better. And I think Steve had indicated that he has some interest in the parking piece.
I'm happy to help him. I could certainly find time to do meetings,
Great.
to organize this stuff and just, as you said, help tee it up for you, and do some of the labor.
Great. I'm in on parking.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
I'll run through this.
Good. All right. So we have dates on sites.
One point of view. So TP&Z considered an application. May have seen a notice in the newspaper regarding 301 Commerce Drive. Those that have the Land Rover Jaguar dealership are looking at bringing in a Piaggio dealership with Italian brand motorcycles and scooters, Vespa, Moto Guzzi, that will be housed at that location. The hearing is closed, so I expect the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider that application for approval at their next meeting. And at that meeting, they'll have a public hearing on a proposed 23-unit multifamily development under 830G at the end of exit ramp 19 in Southport. It's a small site, but it was actually approved for a multi-story office building, which never got built. They're largely using the same footprint to do residential. I've long actually thought that this would be a good site for residential. There is gonna be some opposition, neighborhood opposition to it. So I'm not sure the substance of that. I guess we'll find out at the public hearing, but that's on the docket. The proposed redevelopment of the former part of what was the former Ford manufacturing site at 81 Black Rock, like that brownfield site will be, they've submitted an application for a 246 unit mixed use TOD development to include some co-working space. That's being proposed for the site. They had previously worked with the commission to revise through a text amendment, some of the regulations. That text amendment was approved by the commission, so I believe this application is fully compliant with those revised applications. It'll be scheduled for a public hearing probably early in the new year.
More curious, on that stretch, because you have, down in Brewster in the bottom there,
Yeah,
it is so narrow with those cars,
Yeah.
and Black Rock is so much, that whole area is so much busier.
once you cross the street.
Yeah,
Bridgeport,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
right.
I mean,
the bridge itself is narrow. You know, part of it was they had an opportunity, well, we didn't really have much of an opportunity to widen the bridge because that would require a complete rebuild
Hmm.
of a bridge that is in actually a navigable waterway. So they largely just replaced the existing deck within the footprint and widen it slightly. But it does.
We get down.
Is it okay once you get over?
It's really, I think it's really, it's Brewster, once you
Yeah.
cross the traffic light and you're heading towards Fairfield Avenue, it's
Yeah.
really, it's the residential strip right there. That ultimately, if you think about it, that area will probably come to the same likelihood as what has already been built.
At some point.
It will probably just kind of work its way through. There's already some projects on Bennett Street, I want to say, Bennett, all the way to Fox Street. There's a good sized housing unit that's gonna be going in. And that's probably how that's gonna go. It's just a matter.
On the
of-
Fairfield side of the line, I think the infrastructures, with the exception of the sewer, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
Is in place to support that level of development, because a lot of those intersections and road network was improved to support what was planned for the Fairfield Metro Center site, which is 2 million square foot office park development.
Right.
Which is a much different traffic demand than residential. But
My question was like, does the consideration stop at the town line?
well, it really shouldn't. There should be a regional component to it. I believe planning and zoning does need to consult with MetroCog and surrounding communities as it relates to developments on the doorstep. But I don't know the extent to which that.
I'm not sure how much Bridgeport did.
Exactly.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, when
Same with
yeah, when
Trumbull.
they took over that theater and.
Trumbull had a reputation for many years
Yeah.
of putting all their
Right on the
development
line.
on the line, because then other surrounding communities would share the burden of hosting the infrastructure to support that development while they reaped all the tax benefits from it. So I'm not, you know, that's never been a strategic priority or direction for the town, but I'm just saying others do that as a conscious policy choice. But you know, those things will have to be weighed. They'll have a full traffic analysis, drainage analysis. They're going before the Water Pollution Control Authority for a sewer capacity analysis. I just got their report. It does, for their development based on existing current conditions, there is sufficient capacity in the existing pipe to allow for it, even with the constraints that we currently have. The issue that we have is, you know, we're nearing capacity because of the large amount of inflow and infiltration in that system, which is about 50% of the existing flow. And that needs to be addressed because we want to allow for further development on the eastern side of town. Over the next 50, 100 years, so we need to make sure that we have infrastructure in place to support that. So there is that project to upgrade the pipe there, to replace that pipe, which is currently in the Ash Creek. And that hopefully will be completed, the design specs and all the plans will be completed such that can be built out early next year, like February is the time frame. But it's a massive project. It's like a $15 to $20 million project, of which we're getting $3 million from a grant. So that we still have to close on. So
Is any of that below the tide line?
a lot of that sewer is below the tide
Yeah.
line, so there's a huge component of it, and it's very deep in this section
Yeah.
too. So it's both, that's above the, where the sewer line is, sometimes it's above the water table, so you end up, or below the water table. So sometimes you end up doing a lot of pumping, to keep the excavation
Yeah.
area clear.
Yeah.
And that costs
Sure.
a lot of money.
Sure.
Plus you have an active sewer line that takes 60% of flow in town,
Wow.
and you have to bypass that while you're putting in place, or at least making the connections. You can probably lay the new pipe
Yes.
and then you just make you do bypass while you're making the cross connections at the end. But it's a very complicated project because in some areas, I think it's like 15 to 17 feet deep, the excavation
Yeah.
cut. So that's not an easy thing to do.
So they have a lot of DEEP consideration as well, because.
Plus, you're working in potentially an area that has had legacy contamination because of the industrial use and application, so you're likely to find contaminated soils in the process, so that has to be taken into account. So part of the delay is they're doing a whole host of additional borings to get a deeper understanding of potential contamination, plus the geotechnical side of it to understand the stability of
Yeah.
the area, the composition of the soil.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be quite an undertaking. The only other thing I'll mention is, I think I made him mention this last time, but the owners of the former Exide battery site, and I think it's probably hit the papers already, but have signed a long-term ground lease with Porsche Penske Automotive to relocate the Porsche dealership from Commerce Drive over to the former Exide battery site, build a new dealership building. Part of the, obviously Penske needed a new site because they're kind of hemmed in where they are and they needed to satisfy Porsche's dealership requirements. In a way, it's a little bit of a shame because it's a prime piece of real estate on the Post Road, which is a key gateway into our downtown, and a one-story automotive dealership. No matter how beautiful, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic and beautiful, but it doesn't fully leverage the value of that site. And it doesn't generate a significant amount of new tax revenue to the towns, which has always been an issue. So
The property across the street did not suffice.
it apparently did not suffice, and they have entered into a lease there for a private membership club for automobile enthusiasts, which is be coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Actually, the attorney and property owners reached out to me. They'd like to come before you in January and make a presentation. It does, project does involve some fairly significant building addition and renovation to the space. I mean, given the history in terms of the dog boarding facility and the response from the neighborhood regarding that use, I mean, this is far more in keeping with maybe their concerns. It's fairly innocuous. I don't think it would be a major traffic generator, certainly not generating a lot of noise or other impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. So I'm hoping that would be better received, but they'd like to come in and share with you, their plans for that site. Maybe an opportunity to talk to them further about their plans for the former Xi battery site as well. You know, so
So here's a question. It'll be a storage place for cars.
Exotic car.
Okay, so if that becomes, the barn, the residence of that car, did that become a taxable item for the town? That car, because that's where it's staying?
I think if it's domiciled here, I would suggest that it would be, but I'm not the taxing collector.
In a funny way, if that's the case, it'd actually be a pretty innocuous way to garner a lot of tax dollars, would it not? It might be kind of an interesting.
Wouldn't they be forced to, like, wherever your car's registered, that's where you're paying the property taxes on it?
Yeah, but if it's
It's registered in Florida, you're saying, like, and it's staying here.
yeah, but I think.
Oh, it's a good question. I'll have to ask the tax assessor how he would treat that.
Yeah. Cause I mean, that would be.
I know he's
consideration.
he's certainly willing to take, bend, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
as
it's,
he can to make sure the town gets its fair.
yeah, exactly. I mean, not only the real estate tax, but the equipment that's hanging out there, you know,
That's true.
so. all right.
Okay.
So the other couple things is illicit. We're still waiting on a firm, you know, I think they're trying hard to complete all their work and open before the end of the year, but you know, time's getting short, so we'll see how that goes. I know they've been you know, plagued a little bit with some supply, you know, it's getting better, but there are certain items that there's a backlog for still. And so some of that does take some time. They have the brewing equipment on site, so that's good. So they're working on that, and I think we started with, you know, this is December 7th, which is an auspicious date in US history, an auspicious date. And this is also an auspicious date in Fairfield's history as the Chick-fil-A at 750 Post Road will open.
Well,
Yes.
and you know, what's kind of interesting is as I was driving to work at 2 a.m. this morning, I had to go buy all the cones, you know.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, you know, the surrounding community there of businesses are not going to be happy with how that's going to go down.
So I think the Chick-fil-A has been, I was at their, they had a ribbon cutting type event. I presided and I was representing the town officially to welcome them to the community. I will say that they have really pulled out they've brought in, I'm sure they do this for everything. They have a very experienced team here to lead the store opening process. They've met with the police department to review traffic patterns. You've probably seen that they've published a proposed traffic. They've done all that they can do to manage that. I know there's gonna be a lot of pent up enthusiasm and excitement, people that desperately want to get their chicken sandwiches.
All for chickens.
As well.
Norwalk is closed for
So
renovation.
there's a jonesing factor going on here.
But
That's.
Shelton, you know, so
Yeah,
they've got a
okay,
couple places open, so.
Mom's of Fairfield, she said that the issuing the little traffic map has people quite up in arms, like.
Yeah.
But I think it's
What are you gonna
responsible
do?
to try and
Yeah.
manage the traffic.
Right.
Um,
And they're doing all they, my point is, they're doing
Right,
what they can.
right.
They have met with the PD made. All those, that traffic route was the PD, Fairfield PD saying, will you please do this? And they agreed to everything, so.
I don't think you want libertarians for traffic, like, you know, people.
People are end up gonna do what they're gonna do.
Right.
But, I think you can try to
Mitigate.
mitigate it somewhat.
Yeah.
So I think it'll die down.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah. A new pattern.
It is very, did a very nice job renovating. It's hard to imagine the interior of the space not being Joe's. But they did a nice job. And it is, if you're going into other Chick-fil-A, it's incredibly spacious in there. So, you know, it's chicken sandwich.
Right.
Chicken sandwich.
Is there any upside for those businesses? You have that body shop back there. I was like, you now get traffic on, there's an upside for some of those businesses. Like people-
Exposure. I mean, if they play it right, there's exposure. or there's.
A lot of people weren't even.
You gotta make the most of the situation. There's stuff you can do something about and things that are outside of your control and you know, those that figure out a way to leverage this opportunity, I think are in a better position to succeed. So,
This is capitalism. This is how it works.
so the only other thing I will mention, Bev's not here today. We had the holiday stroll last night. We had I thought, a really good turnout.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I
Pieces
driving
of it
through
saw.
it, my, you know, I saw my credit card was there, right?
Mine too. My wife came home and said, "Hey, look what I got." It's like, oh, great. But yeah, there was.
I got your
turnout.
present for me.
My shopping is done. Yes, yes. But I think we will be doing our usual, we usually go back out to the merchants afterward, ask them, you know, I try to circulate during the night, see how things are going, but then we try to touch base and see how we might improve, how the event went for them. You know, generally I heard a lot of positive feedback, so hopefully that was good.
Weather was good.
Weather was good.
I like the
and
little shop, the
Yeah,
shop sign, yeah, there's.
That was cool.
Yeah,
That was cool. We had nothing to do with that,
Oh,
but
really?
that was good that they did that. I'm
Yeah, it was
hoping
fun.
that they do that.
They had a big sign lit, it was like bowls in it, that said shop on it, and it stood about this tall, right? I mean,
Yeah, it
decent
was-
size, you know, and
Good.
you just, you know, it just kind of, you saw it from an angle, and like, what is that? And you got a little closer, you know.
Where was that located?
It was
Right at the Brickwalk
Yeah,
Promenade.
yeah.
And we are finishing up Stratfield, the Four Corner
Yeah.
intersection project, so that's largely done now. I think probably substantially complete, which is good because our grant runs through the end of the year. So I have to close things up and get our money from the state before then. So all in all, pretty full calendar, and I did have occasion to meet with the new first selectman. He was gracious enough to give me a couple hours of his time and made my way through about halfway down my list of projects I wanted to talk to him about, but
Any change in priorities?
I don't think so. He seems, you know, I'm sure a lot of it is just trying to get up to speed on a lot of different things, but now he's focused a lot on the UI siting council application that's pending, as he should. And you know, Enfield seems that might be the only area that I sense that we have a change in direction potentially. There's been a little pause to Penfield. I mean, the remediation component is still being completed, but there's some discussion about, you know, reevaluating whether or not to rebuild the pavilion. So
The whole pavilion,
Oh,
as opposed to just a portion of it.
correct.
Like this.
So that was-
Get rid of the lockers or something like that. I mean, that's.
I don't know, remains to be seen. It's not directly in my purview, but that's the only, you know, to your point, the only thing I've seen so far. In terms of our work, no. And I think we may want to again extend an invitation for Bill to join us at some upcoming meeting based on his schedule. So.
Anyone else have any items that they'd like to bring up?
Sort of thank Gretchen for always being here and doing the recording and acknowledge your contributions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't think you've ever missed a meeting.
I don't think I missed one because I overslept or something.
Well, we'll give you a
Rarity.
pass on
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Uh,
Once a decade's fine.
But it's interesting to me because I do the affordable housing, but I also do the Fairfield Housing Authority. So they all mesh. So I kind of know what's going on.
You're well informed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now my nephew's wife is moderator of the RTM. So
Our wealth of knowledge is right here. We.
It could be a spy.
Funny. Well, before we before we break for the holidays, there's a couple, first of all, thank you for all of your time that you give to the town through this and other activities that you have. Appreciate your support and guidance throughout. Did want to, put one piece out there, we've had for you to think about, and if you have some ideas, shoot me a note, but we've had guest speakers in the past. So if there's folks that you'd like to hear from or subjects you'd like to discuss more in depth, just shoot me a note. Happy to try to arrange that as part of our schedule for 2024. And then we've done, I think it's very helpful for you. I think you guys enjoy it. We've done meetings in other locations and learn a little bit more about businesses, whether it's Bigelow Tea. We've done things at Sacred Heart and Fairfield University. We've done things at the Fairfield Theater Company in the past. I have a couple ideas. I was just at the Fairfield U Bookstore, which has done a complete renovation. They have the second floor space that they're planning to use for events. I'm sure, that might be an opportunity for us to have a meeting there at some point and learn, it's good to hear from Jen and from others at Fairfield U as to what they have on their planning horizon. Similarly with SHU, the community theater, I don't think we've had a meeting there, but we could do that as well. And then, I'm sure all of us would mind. We did that thing at Old Post.
Right. It was posted, it was posted there.
Maybe we'd have another venue like
Yeah.
Illicit Brewing. We can
That's right.
have a meeting at. They have a very large space. I'm sure that they would be happy to provide us with a meeting room at some point. Maybe it won't be at 8:30 in the morning. Maybe we would want to have a meeting at some other time, but that might be another possibility. And then there is that co-working space, which is for creative types, primarily writers, that opened at the Fairfield Sportsplex. But the Sportsplex is an interesting story in itself too. So, but if you have other ideas, things that you'd like to learn more about, just let me know, because I think that
That's a good list.
broadens our knowledge base, and I think it makes it more.
Well, it would also, give us the opportunity that if there are certain individuals that we felt as a commission that we should get to know a little more, it might give that opportunity to, we do have some developers in town that might be nice to have.
And we've had-
It's like, we've had some interaction with the Cleveland.
Right, Ken Cleban and talk, yep.
But there are other developers as well, Chanel is obviously a player too in town, and there's a whole list of good developers. And they're smart individuals, and they might have some really good insight.
We had a presentation at the Southern New England Planning Association Conference in New Haven. I was on a panel with Jim Wendt and Andy Montelli from Post Road Residential, Andy and his son Tom, and the rest of the group over at Post Road. They're very good developers. They did the Anchorage. They're the ones proposing the development at E1 Black Rock Turnpike. They live in town. I'm sure they would be happy to come to a meeting and share their wealth of knowledge on just broad general real estate development questions. It's just a sense of the real estate market they can provide, but it's to your point, there's a lot of good people.
Is there anyone on like the state level? Because it does seem like we bump up against that. It's such a amorphous thing. Who would you talk to? It always, you're working for grants, there's, tax issues, there's all kinds of things, but I don't know. Building a relationship.
Yeah.
Where to start with that? That's.
Well, we might have already started in the sense of if we have a Democratic first selectman, there's likely going to be a new avenue.
Probably.
And it's just how life is.
Yeah, Lamont.
Yeah, he was here. Lamont was here. I was there that night.
Yeah, and that's not wrong. That's just let's.
Yeah, I saw you go up on stage.
The winners go to.
You're in the RTM, I saw that. Hey, there's some.
Well, yeah, I do think, we do have the, economic outlook breakfast that will come up from the chamber. Bev were here, she would mention that. In January, typically, I think she invites the governor to come and say a few words. We'll see if he's here. Bill will probably be featured. So, we'll see.
Right.
And from the state standpoint, you know, they were gonna have a new DECD commissioner. I'm sure you saw Alexander Dahm is stepping down, to take a position at Yale. I don't know the new commissioner yet as well. We work also with Advanced CT, which is the marketing arm, and they also do business recruitment out of state, out of country, which is major focus now, you know, going to Israel and other countries in Europe and recruiting businesses that want to have a US location. So those folks are a little bit more approachable. I work very closely with them on a couple of different things, but you know, we'll see. You know, the actual grant people, I don't know if it would be very meaningful for you because they don't.
No,
I have to work through the mechanics of it, but they're like, check this box, check that box.
Just building bridges, that's all, you know, like, is there some way we could like, just be on their radar a little
Yep.
bit more and like, you know, maybe clear the paths for you or, you know, anyone else in town. I'm saying, oh yeah, Fairfield, they're interested, they're active, they're, you know.
Yeah, good point.
By the way, we talked about about looking at the parking with Kenslet. So that really is a major deal. I mean, that's part of, you know, Al Cleveland years ago said to me, it was all about parking. It's all about
Parking drives development.
And so the better we make the ability for these developers to develop, which is parking. We'll see whether we don't want that or not. That's how it plays itself out. So that's that will be an important aspect to that. We talked about it a little bit. We talked about equalizing the parking requirements, and then I'm sure there are next steps. I think the Bob's Store Plaza is that perfect example of next steps. Although right now that area now is probably extra heated, so I'm not sure how receptive anyone's going to be of anything right there. So, but that's settled
He's
down.
talking across the street.
Speaking of, what's happening?
So, I think they're
Well, they're leaving.
planning, they're leaving by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, okay, so they're gonna have their big blowout sale coming up.
Yeah, well, I think it's been blowing out, I guess.
Well,
but,
Semi-blowout.
yeah.
That's fine.
So, Restoration Hardware Outlet is taking, that space. I'm not sure if Bob's will be successful. I mean, there really aren't many options beyond Bed Bath and Beyond that I can identify, in town. So when I checked last with the ownership there, they had not entered into a lease with anyone for that site, although they've got plenty of interest. So I don't expect it to stay vacant for very
Stop and
long.
Shop Plaza, like between the Planet Fitness, isn't there a big space in that corner back there? I don't know how.
No, there's, most of that's now taken up by Planet Fitness, and they have a nail salon in there. There's a little bit of space. But to your point, there was a approved pad location there, and you know, again, that's another example of oodles of parking. I mean, part of it is the bowling alley, but the bowling alley, you know, I don't know, you know, look like their long-term plan, they have that. There's a lot of space there.
But the property that smaller property that's actually on the road below it, that just got sold.
The 320, the dental practice, building, yeah.
Do we know what's going on with that? Or
No, I mean, it was perfect for a medical office type use, so we'll see.
Because you have all that extra parking behind it.
That's owned separately. That's that parking behind is part of, the
right.
Stop and
Yeah,
Shop.
right.
But it's
I know. I did.
completely
Right.
wasted
Yeah,
space.
right.
It's chained off. And that was
Yeah.
one of the things that was identified in the.
There's old
housing.
Gypsy Springs. There was an old like that area, like going back multiple generations ago, that was an area that people would go and picnic over there because there were.
I suppose, you know, if you look at raw square footage, you could also say like the Gaza Scap dealership, which is on the market currently.
Yeah.
You know, that could accommodate.
Didn't they just switch over to Gingers?
It did, the dealership was sold to Gengris and but
They might not
the
say that.
property is on the market.
Mhm.
So they are planning to locate the dealership down to Commerce Drive. They have a property down there that they're refitting for their dealership purposes. And they didn't, you know, buy that specifically yet. I don't, maybe they want to at some point, but a lot of people looking at it for different uses.
Can that be housing or?
Well, sure, it could, yeah. I don't know what the cost would be to retrofit it. If there's any environmental that would have to be dealt with, you know, because residential typically requires a higher cleanup standard than an industrial commercial.
Well, the two on the right, as you're going up the hill, those are pretty modern buildings in the sense of that they're steel. I mean, they're built pretty substantially. Gaza was quite the engineer. He had a lab on the upper floor that he was building a jet. For real.
So we can't lose that history and knowledge you have of the town. Like,
Yeah.
That I didn't know, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're probably good. Again, I wish everyone a wonderful holiday and happy new year. Yes, Gretchen, we really appreciate you, and Martin, we really appreciate your leadership for the town. For certain, you're quite the chum. I'm sure that our first selectman, if you know, if he was looking at all of his different departments, you're not the one that is on fire, per se. You're the one that's running on all cylinders, and that's probably the not worried about.
Thank you.
Assets for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate all of your support throughout the year and wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's it. We're adjourned. You good?
All right.